She had led hundreds across some of the most treacherous mountain trails in the Andes, but it took only one climb for the mountain not to give her back. On the morning of September 3rd, 2018, under a dense veil of fog shrouding Cerro Castillo, 29-year-old mountain guide Elena Marquez set off on a sunrise trek with a small group of tourists. Just a few hours later, she vanished without a single clear trace. The search began the very same day, but all they found was a single silver-gray climbing glove caught in a bush near the edge of a ravine. The middle finger was torn. It belonged to Elena. It was not just the only clue, it was a haunting reminder in the face of nature's vastness. Sometimes all it takes is one small misstep for a person to disappear forever. This is the story of Elena Marquez and the unsolved mystery of Cerro Castillo. Elena Marquez was born on a crisp spring morning in 1989 in Coyhaique, small town nestled deep in Chilean Patagonia, where winter coats the hills in white and summer stretches green all the way to the horizon. Her family's wooden cottage sat quietly on a hillside, where you could hear the wind whistle through the old pine trees and see the towering silhouette of Cerro Castillo rise through the morning mist. Her mother, Cecilia, was a woodcarver. Her father, Diego, worked with the local forest ranger team. To the people of Coyhaique, Elena was the girl with bright brown eyes and a smile that spread joy like wildfire, while most children played games in the schoolyard. Elena followed her father into the mountains, learning to read the wind, spot animal tracks, and hear the faintest sounds of the forest. That wild, untamed nature was her first classroom. As a child, she kept journals of those adventures, faded pages filled with stories of watching snow melt into ice, sheltering in a rocky cave during a sudden blizzard, and slipping near a stream on slick stones. Those memories shaped Elena into a brave, thoughtful soul, someone who treated nature not as a playground, but with deep respect. Her childhood friends recall how she always shared her snacks, never left anyone behind on the walk home, and somehow knew just when to offer comfort, even then. She had an unusual empathy, comforting those who were scared, giving others the right of way on a steep trail, and sitting silently to watch the sunset instead of rushing home. To Elena, the wilderness wasn't just where she felt free, it was home. It gave her peace, passion, and purpose. At 18, after finishing high school, Elena chose to study ecotourism at the Patagonia College. Many encouraged her to move to the capital, Santiago, for better opportunities. But Elena refused. She wanted to stay rooted in her homeland, guiding visitors along the trails of Cerro Castillo, the mountain she knew like the back of her hand. As a student, she worked part-time at a mountaineering gear shop, learning how to fix harnesses, adjust carabiners, and properly size climbing boots. She gained experience by shadowing veteran guides, absorbing every lesson: how to handle altitude sickness, how to read sudden weather shifts through clouds and wind, how to survive in the wild. At just 21, she earned her national certification, one of Chile's youngest certified female mountain guides. But what truly set Elena apart wasn't just her knowledge. It was her kindness. She checked on every client's health, adjusted routes for safety, and never risked a group just to catch a view on one trip. She spent the night on the mountain with an exhausted elderly tourist, pitching a makeshift shelter and caring for him until he was strong enough to descend. After that, her name began to spread. She became a symbol of both deep respect for nature and unwavering commitment to safety to the people of Coyhaique. Elena was a point of pride, proof that even a small-town girl could achieve something great with enough passion and perseverance. Elena wasn't just beloved by tourists, she was admired by the community. Every summer, she and her friends volunteered to clean trails, fix worn-out signs, and replace safety lines along dangerous cliffs whenever someone went missing. Elena was the first to join the search. She believed no one deserved to be left behind in the cold, unforgiving wild. Her best friend, Mariana, recalls how Elena always carried a first aid kit, packed extra protein bars to share, and never skipped a safety briefing to her colleagues. She was the light of the group, singing old Chilean folk songs as they climbed, lifting everyone's spirits. To kids on family tours, she was a big sister, patiently answering their endless questions about birds, snow, and trees. To the elderly, she slowed down, talked them through their fears, shared tips, and made them feel seen. Everyone who met Elena remembered her with a smile. Many kept in touch, sending photos, thank you letters, even becoming lifelong friends. Elena didn't just guide people up mountains, she sparked in them a love for nature and a deeper appreciation for life. That's why, when news broke that Elena had gone missing, it wasn't just her family who grieved. The entire town of Coyhaique was shaken, wrapped in a sorrow that refused to fade. That morning, Elena woke at 4 a.m. to prepare for a sunrise hike with 4 tourists, 2 Germans, and a Canadian couple. They set off from Loop Camp at 5:15 a.m., their headlamps casting soft beams along the fog-draped slopes of the mountain. As the sun began to rise, Cerro Castillo emerged in all its grandeur, the sky igniting with a fiery orange glow that left everyone in awe. Elena led the group to a narrow outcrop with a breathtaking panoramic view. She gave careful instructions about the slippery terrain. Everyone marveled at the view, their breaths caught by the mountain's beauty. Around 8 a.m., the group began their descent. Along the way, the older couple began to slow, showing signs of fatigue. Elena made a decision. She asked the 2 younger tourists to continue ahead with the Canadian couple, while she stayed back to assist the seniors personally when they reached a halfway rest point. The older guests insisted she go on ahead, saying they could manage the rest on their own, but Elena refused to leave until she was sure another group would assist them. At 11:20 a.m., Elena sent a message to a colleague all good should be back before 4. It came from an area near Ravine number Celtialv, a complex zone known for loose rocks and melting ice. That was the last trace of her. No one could reach her afterward, no radio, no satellite phone, no signal at all. By 4 p.m., when Elena hadn't returned and hadn't checked in, staff at Loop Camp began calling her over radio, no reply. Real concern set in when all the tourists arrived safely back at camp, but Elena was still missing. By 6 p.m., a 3-person emergency search team began retracing the route Elena had taken that morning. Darkness was falling. Fog rolled in thick and fast, and the cold mountain wind sliced through their jackets. By 8 p.m., they discovered a trail of Elena's footprints pressed into damp soil, stretching roughly 300 meters before stopping abruptly at the edge of a narrow ravine. There, they found something chilling, a single silver-gray climbing glove caught in a low bush near the cliff's edge. The middle finger was torn open, exposing the fabric underneath. It was Elena's glove. For those who knew her, it was a gut-punch, unmistakable evidence that she had been there, and possibly that something had gone terribly wrong. Yet, oddly, there were no signs of a fall, no long skid marks, no blood, no personal belongings scattered about. Normally, a fall in such terrain would leave clear evidence: disturbed dirt, displaced stones, dropped gear. But the area around the glove was eerily undisturbed, silent, clean. That night, Elena's disappearance was escalated to Chilean mountain rescue authorities. By dawn, more than 40 people joined the search park rangers, mountain rescue specialists, search dogs, thermal drones. They split into teams and scoured every ravine, rock face, and potential hiding place, even narrow caves barely wide enough for a body to slip into. Drones scanned from above, hunting for heat signatures, but Cerro Castillo offered nothing in return, just silence. The weather turned hostile. In a single afternoon, the temperature dropped from 45°F(7°C) to below 28°F(2°C). Winds whipped with dangerous force, halting parts of the search in the following days. Surprise snow and freezing rain buried potential clues and threatened the safety of rescue teams. Through it all, Elena's mother, Cecilia, remained at the rescue station at the mountain's base, her eyes heavy with grief, but her hope unshaken. She waited for her daughter. The people of Coyhaique rallied behind her. They cooked meals, brought warm clothing for the search teams, and prayed for a miracle. But as days passed, hope slowly transformed into a quiet. Gnawing dread: had Elena survived, or had this unforgiving mountain? Her mountain taken her for good on the 4th day of the search, just as hope began to fade. A man named Rodrigo Salas, 52, a local hunter, arrived at the Loop Camp rescue station with a tense expression. He claimed that on the morning Elena disappeared, he had entered the forest early to check animal traps. Around 10:30 a.m., roughly 4 kilometers off the main trail, he said he saw a woman wearing a yellow jacket and black hat, small in stature, moving in the opposite direction. Looking panicked, Rodrigo shouted, "Are you okay?" But the woman only glanced his way before disappearing into the trees. What caught the rescue team's attention was that his description exactly matched Elena's attire that day. Yellow jacket, black hat, charcoal pants. It was a flicker of hope in a deepening darkness. If Rodrigo was telling the truth, it meant Elena hadn't fallen near the ravine, but instead had become disoriented and wandered into the forest. Search efforts quickly shifted. The team expanded the operation to the dense southeastern woodlands of Cerro Castillo, using K-9 units and thermal drones to sweep the area. Spirits lifted, many believed Elena was still alive, waiting to be found. But seasoned rescuers began to question the story. If Elena had been moving through the forest for 3 days, why had she left no footprints, no radio signal, no signs of movement? As the team combed through, Rodrigo's described location split into 6 units combing trails, bushes, and every shallow crevice. 8 hours passed with no results, no fabric, no prints, no signs of life, nothing. A specialist team began analyzing Rodrigo's testimony more closely, cross-referencing it with weather data, the sun's position that morning, and detailed terrain maps. They found several discrepancies at 10:30 a.m. The sunlight would not have penetrated the thick forest canopy as Rodrigo claimed. The area he described was steep, unstable, and rarely visited by hunters at that hour. Even the most experienced, another hunter, a friend of Rodrigo's, told investigators that Rodrigo had left home late that day, after fixing his motorbike closer to 11:00 a.m. This further muddied the timeline. When pressed for clarification, Rodrigo grew inconsistent. At one point, he said he heard screams. Later, he denied hearing anything. This led to mounting suspicion. Was Rodrigo lying to gain attention, or worse, to play the hero? Yet investigators couldn't dismiss the possibility that Rodrigo had simply misremembered. Time perception in the wilderness is often unreliable, and human memory is fragile under stress. Had he seen Elena, or someone who merely looked like her when the search in the forest proved fruitless? The rescue operation scaled down. Only a core team continued combing potential zones. Meanwhile, Elena's family was crumbling. Her mother stayed at the base camp, hollow-eyed from days without rest. Refusing every offer to go home, the people of Coy Hake, once bolstered by Rodrigo's tip, now wavered. Some grew angry. Frustrated, they had wasted time chasing shadows. Rumors spread suggesting Rodrigo invented the sighting for a reward. Though there was no evidence, the whispers persisted. Rodrigo fell silent, avoiding reporters and even the rescue team, with no new leads. Efforts shifted back to the ravine where Elena's glove had been found. Teams widened their search, probing deeper crevices, clearing snowdrifts, scraping frozen soil, but nothing emerged. As time wore on, the weather turned crueler. Heavy snow blanketed the trails. Icy winds tore at exposed skin. The mountain covered its secrets, deep down. Everyone knew if Elena had somehow survived those first days, her chances of lasting through this were almost zero. Still, no one dared to speak that truth aloud. The fragile hope Rodrigo had sparked now flickered out, leaving behind only silence, and the crushing weight of despair in every heart still searching for Elena. On the 9th day since Elena disappeared, with the rescue teams thinned out by exhaustion and brutal weather, a specialized unit decided to revisit all the footage captured by drones in the early days of the search. They clung to the hope that a small, overlooked detail could spark a new lead. While combing through the data, a technician noticed that one of the drones flown on the afternoon of day 2 had briefly lost signal, causing the video to skip and blur as he slowed the footage frame by frame. Something caught his eye, a brief flash of yellow in the drab expanse of forest and gray rock, just a blink. But unmistakable, a glint of yellow sunlight bouncing off what looked like fabric, partially hidden beneath a rock ledge. The location was roughly 600 meters south of where Elena's glove had been found, near a deep crevice that had previously gone unchecked due to steep terrain and limited visibility. The remaining search team quickly regrouped. With climbing gear in hand, they set out in darkness, determined to reach the site at first light. Their hearts beat with cautious hope. This might be the last shot before a forecasted snowstorm swept in. That morning, weak sunlight filtered through thick clouds over Cerro Castillo, casting a pale glow across the jagged path to the crevice. A 6-person rescue team, assisted by 2 local mountaineering experts, approached the edge with painstaking care. They anchored ropes, secured harnesses, and pressed forward across moss-covered rocks and lingering patches of old ice. Every step mattered not just for their safety, but because every movement brought them closer to the possibility of finding Elena, or at least a definitive answer. Finally, from the rim of the crevice, they peered down into a narrow, shadowy abyss. There, wedged about 7 meters below, a piece of bright yellow fabric clung to the jagged rock wall, torn and weathered, but unmistakably part of a technical mountaineering jacket. It matched the one Elena had worn the day she vanished. The fabric was scratched, one edge violently ripped, as if it had been caught and torn by sheer force. For a moment, no one spoke. Then came sharp, audible breaths. This was it. Elena had been here, and very likely had fallen. Yet, looking deeper, the bottom of the crevice vanished into darkness. There was no way to know what lay below. The team called for additional rappelling equipment and experts capable of navigating the hazardous terrain. On the 10th day, reinforcements arrived, high-powered headlamps, reinforced climbing gear, and trained caving specialists from a neighboring region. The descent resumed. The air below was icy and damp, the smell of moss and cold stone rising from the ancient depths. As the team rappelled deeper, they followed faint scrapes on the rock face signs that something, or someone, had once slid downward at roughly 15 meters. They found another clue, a red carabiner, the exact kind from Elena's climbing harness kit, though they didn't find Elena's body. The fabric and the carabiner were overwhelming evidence. She had fallen into this crevice, but the bottom still showed no signs of trauma, no blood, no personal belongings, no body, just the quiet, the cold, and the mystery. Some team members began to wonder, had Elena fallen farther, into a lower cavern beyond their reach? Could an underground stream have carried her deeper at the far end of the crevice? The walls opened into a black voidan underground chamber far beyond their equipment and training. After an urgent meeting, the team made the hard choice. They had to halt the search, pending the arrival of elite cave rescue specialists from Santiago. Any further descent would risk the lives of the searchers themselves. The discovery cracked open the mystery at last. Elena had likely fallen that very morning. All this time, she may have been just meters away from where teams had been searching, and yet no one had seen her. Until now, on the 9th day of the search, just as rescue teams were gearing up for a dangerous descent into the crevice, a new development threw everything into turmoil. Luis Ortega, 35, a Coy Hake local and owner of an ATV rental shop, came forward voluntarily. He claimed that on the morning Elena vanished, around 9:15 a.m., he had been guiding a group across the western plains of Cerro Castillo, nearly 8 kilometers from the crevice site. Luis insisted he saw a woman in a yellow jacket walking briskly through the sparse grass, glancing up at him before disappearing behind a patch of low trees. His description was oddly specific: slim figure, yellow jacket, black hat, small black backpack, exactly what Elena had worn. He even said she had a slight limp, as if she'd twisted her ankle. Elena's family was devastated. Her mother broke down at the thought of her daughter, injured, possibly wandering for help. But search specialists quickly noted a serious problem based on terrain and time. It was physically impossible for Elena to have covered 80 kilometers of rugged ground between the ravine and the plains within the time Luis described. Still, protocol demanded action. A small team was dispatched to comb the western plains, searching for footprints, torn fabric, or any sign that Elena had passed through. They reviewed Luis' dashcam footage, hoping for visual confirmation, but there was none. In fact, GPS data showed Luis hadn't been anywhere near the plains at 9:15 a.m. on the day of Elena's disappearance when pressed. Luis grew visibly uneasy. His story shifted. First, he claimed he might have mixed up the date. Then he swore it was the right day because the sky was clear, but weather records showed dense fog all morning on September 3rd. Nothing matched. And yet, the media caught wind of his claims, sparking headlines like "New sighting of missing guide" and reigniting public chaos. Elena's mother was crushed again. Could Elena have escaped the mountain? Only to vanish elsewhere. Coyhaique split into factions, some convinced the search had focused on the wrong area all along, others furious that time and effort were being wasted on misinformation. At the rescue station, tensions rose, disagreements flared, cohesion among the teams started to fray. Precious time ticked away. By day 15, weather conditions deteriorated rapidly. Winds whipped snow into sharp sheets. Scaling deeper crevices became impossible. Avalanche risk too high. The rappelling mission had to be suspended. Meanwhile, the contradictory testimonies of Rodrigo and Luis left Elena's family shattered. Her mother, Cecilia, broke down in a briefing, sobbing to the lead rescuers, "I don't know what's real anymore, but please don't give up." Even the most seasoned searchers had begun to lose hope. Around Coyhaique, an air of sadness settled over the town. Rumors bloomed. Was Elena kidnapped? Had she run away? Theories swirled, but no one had answers, faced with rising danger. The rescue team made a difficult call withdraw until a weather window opened, possibly 5 days out. They packed up, broke down base camp, and hiked back down the mountain, for the first time since the search began. There were no radios crackling through the cold, no headlamps cutting across the dark, only silence. The hollow, icy quiet of Cerro Castillo, and the rising weight of a devastating truth: the mountain may not give her back. 4 days after the rescue teams were forced to retreat, winter came down hard on Cerro Castillo. The strongest snowstorm in 5 years swept through the range, burying everything beneath more than half a meter of snow overnight. Any lingering traces of Elena, her yellow jacket, the old footprints were wiped clean. It was as if the mountain had sealed away the last flicker of hope in a sheet of ice. Still, when the skies briefly cleared, a small rescue team returned armed with newly acquired thermal drones capable of detecting human body heat and shapes beneath snow. They flew along the ravines, scanning every crevice and ledge, praying against the odds that Elena had found shelter, that some warmth might remain. But the data returned only the same rock, ice, and the endless black voids of high alpine terrain. No signal, no image, no signs of life in a last effort. Elena's family and the rescue authorities offered a reward for any credible information. But the calls that came were empty rumors, false tips, and wishful thinking that only deepened their pain on bitterly cold nights. Cecilia sat alone in a small tent at the base of the mountain, staring up at the cloud-covered summit of Cerro Castillo. She whispered her daughter's name over and over again, waiting, hoping for some kind of answer to echo back from the wilderness. Elena's disappearance, the agonizing search, and the haunting lack of closure sent shockwaves across Patagonia. Mountaineering communities throughout Chile tightened their safety protocols. Emergency survival training courses were added. Elena's story became a sobering lesson, no matter how experienced, confident, or prepared a person might be. Nature can still take them in a moment. Her face bright-eyed, smiling, now hangs in posters at trail stops, campsites, and mountain cafes. A reminder that behind the breathtaking beauty of the Andes, danger always lurks in silence. In community meetings, those who once hiked with Elena shared their story, show she inspired them, guided them, lifted their spirits. But the air in Coyhaique remains heavy. The woman who joked and sang with them just days before her disappearance has become something else, a symbol of uncertainty, of life's fragility in the wild. Months passed. Still, no answers. Eventually, local authorities made the difficult announcement the official search operation was suspended, but Elena Marquez's case remains open. Any new lead will still be pursued immediately. Her family, friends, and mountaineers across Chile hold on to hope, even if it's small, even if it's fading, today, nearly 6 years later. The mystery of Elena still lingers in the snow-capped peaks of Cerro Castillo. Every September, the people of Coy Hake organize a memorial hike. They tie yellow ribbons to the rocks, place flowers, and leave notes for Elena wishing her peace, wherever she may be. Her mother, older now but unwavering, still speaks at the ceremonies. We don't know what happened that day, but I believe my daughter fought with everything she had. I'm proud of her. Elena Marquez's story doesn't end with an answer. It leaves behind a quiet ache, a question still hanging in the cold mountain air. What really happened in the wild that day? Do you think Elena fell into the crevice or that she survived, only to become lost in the endless maze of the Andes? Share your thoughts below. And if you believe no one deserves to be forgotten, follow this page. Let's keep hope alive for those still missing out there.